So that's how I'd like to be able to say that I've used my time wisely. I don't know that I'm there yet, because I do know that I do feel guilty when I'm not being productive. When I am just doing leisurely stuff and I catch myself feeling like you should be writing.
Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast, where we are reimagining and redefining what it means to be in midlife, where we are gathering energy, momentum, and excitement for our next chapter via candid conversations with other midlifers about their own pivots, pitfalls, and triumphs. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your host, and I'm so happy you're here. Adulting can be hard, but you don't have to go it alone. I created this podcast to give you inspiration and let you know you're not alone in feeling stuck in midlife. Both men and women are welcome here. But if you are a woman, I also invite you to join our Midlife Uprising community for women, where we're making waves and reimagining what it means to age. Being part of this community for women will remind you on a regular basis that you're not too old and it's never too late to do that thing you've been thinking about. You can find more information at latebloomerliving.com/community, and I hope to see you there. Welcome to the season finale for season 3. You are hearing the sounds of the Long Island Sound. I don't know why that tickles me. So I decided to record my introduction from the beach this morning because I want to talk about what it means to use time wisely. I'm going to be going on a break, but I will be back. I'll be back in October, actually. And the reason that I'm taking an extra long season hiatus this time is because there's some project work that I need to make some room, some space, some time for. When I started thinking about how I wanted to close out season 3, I immediately thought, I think I need to have my friend Lou Blaser join me to talk about how we make space for things that we really want to do in our lives. Project work that goes a little above and beyond what we normally have bandwidth for. And so that is the conversation that I'm going to be having with Lou, because Lou is also a podcaster. She has a newsletter that is a sponsor of this podcast called Midlife Cues. If you've listened to before, you've heard me talk about Lou's awesome newsletter. Love her podcast too. And so sometimes we like to sit down. Actually, we sit down quarterly these days to just have a conversation that we share with you. Sometimes it lands here on my podcast. Sometimes it lands on hers over on Second Breaks. And this time, we're talking about how we get ourselves set to do things that are a little, that require more of our time and energy than the normal day-to-day things that we do. I think it's turned out to be a great conversation. And the phrase using time wisely ended up coming up a lot in our conversation. And that's the title of this episode. I'm going to leave it there for now. I will see you on the flip side of the conversation to talk about using time wisely. And thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, Lou, how are you feeling? Are you feeling better?
I'm at a tail end now, so the worst is over. But you might still hear a bit of the clogged nose type thing going on and a bit of coughing, which I'm hoping I'd be able to mute, or you can edit it out. But yeah.
Well, thank you for doing this for me for my
Of
season
course.
closer. We're wrapping
Of
up
course.
season 3. Oh my goodness.
and I had to have my buddy here with me
Of
to
course.
talk about
This
all
is your
the things.
this is your annual thing, right? You do this annually. You do
Yeah.
this summer break.
I do. So I take the break, and it's mostly so that I can get a little wiggle room in my schedule. But this year I'm taking an extra long break because there's some project work I want to do. And I'm finding it difficult to make headway on the projects that I want to work on. So I'm trying to clear just a little extra room in the schedule and come back. Let's see. I'm planning to come back for season 4. Dun, 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 on October 18th.
Wow.
Yeah.
So all of August, all of September, you're on a break. And I was actually wondering if you
half
go
of
on
October, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, because we drop off our oldest at college at the end of September after a family wedding that we're going to. So, so, I thought, oh, well, I could come and just jump right back in and go be ready with season 4 as soon as I've dropped him off. And I'm like, what am I doing? Because the time that I'm taking off, I've got some big photography jobs that are happening in the meantime. You know what I mean? So, and I want to plan season 4 a little bit and think about the direction that it's going and all those things.
Yeah.
You take a break once a year, don't you?
I do. I tend to take a break around the holidays, like December, like around the second week of December into like the first half of January. And I use that time to sort of like plan for the following year, kind of what I wanted to focus on, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, holidays. Usually I feel like, people are probably less likely to listen to podcasts on holidays, although somebody told me that's not actually true. So I don't know. But that's generally the time when I do my break. But actually, the way that you were talking about it, I was wondering whether you usually take a break to coincide with when the boys are back for summer break to kind of like spend more time with them.
Yeah, it's kind of like that last gasp of family time for the summer.
Yes,
and then I usually come back in September and I'm ready to roll.
Yeah.
Again,
right. But the other thing that I was wanting to ask you about, because we talk about a break hiatus in the podcast, but in your case, you're not actually going on like a break as in a vacation for 2 months. It doesn't sound like it's like the podcast is going on hiatus, but you're not on vacation for 2 months. Or am I wrong? Or
no, you are not. You are not wrong. So I'm working on some projects, and one of them is like a photo book. Well, it's like a little gift book. It's like,
yes,
it's going to be fun.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm hoping to get that. I'm actually pretty far along with it, and I just can't get past the finish line with as busy as things are. So I need that wiggle room in my calendar to finish that one off. And then there's I'm not going to say too much, but there's some other project work I want to work on as well.
And then you still have your photography business or sessions, or right, that you do. So you're not actually on when we're talking about you're going on break, you're not, the podcast is going on a pause, but you're not going on vacation.
Right. No, I've got a big branding photo session that I'm doing in Seattle at the end of August. Now you're working on a project. I want to turn over to your project work.
Yeah.
And I think the main reason I wanted to talk about all this today, this taking a break business, is because I'm doing it to make room, to make mental space in and calendar, literal time space, right? To get this stuff done. Now you have a big project you're working on. How do you handle something like that? That's a big project that you've got to make time for. And do you want to say what your project is? What are you working on?
Yeah. So, well, 2 things. I will talk about the projects, or I will talk about how making time for the project. But before I talk about that, I do actually also want to make a point. The reason I was asking you about your plans is because I have not been very good at taking long breaks from work. I've never, I've never been able to do that. So, for years, I was called a workaholic, because I could never take breaks for, long periods of time. Or, like I would go on a 2-week vacation, but I would be working during those 2 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
I've never been able
goodness.
to.
Those are back in your consultant days, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Oh my
no. So
goodness.
I've never been able to. And you'd think that by retiring from my corporate job, my corporate role, and now being on my own and having my own business, that I'd be better at it. But no, like, I guess the habits that we've had all our lives will continue unless you like really work on changing them. So the fact that you're no longer incorporating, you're doing this, it doesn't change. You're still the same workaholic person you've always been, Lou Blaser. So anyway, what I'm trying to do, and this will go into the planning for big projects too. So what I'm trying to do is more like on a weekly or even on a daily basis, have breaks as opposed to have, work. Like, the old thing of work hard, play hard type stuff. I
Mhm.
can't do that. So what I'm trying to do is incorporate breaks during my day. So I have learned how not to be guilty for taking a 3-hour break during the day. You know what I mean? Or a 4-hour break.
Yes.
If I just want to work in the morning and take a break in the afternoon, so be it. That's how it is. So that's how I've incorporated breaks into my life, as opposed to a month long of break.
Okay. So we're talking about breaks, but I want to know how you're going to fit in. What are you doing to make time on your calendar for your project?
That's a little bit more difficult because again, it's a conscious thing that I'm having to work on, because in the past, I will just add on to the plate
Right.
and say, okay, well, then that means
That's
for
what
the
I've
next
been
three
doing
months,
for months now is I've just
right?
been adding on and adding
Adding,
on. And
right,
I am so like burned out right now.
right.
Right? Why do we do this to ourselves? You'd think I'm, what am I? I'm 55 next week. You would think I'd have learned by now to manage my
Exactly.
time better, Lou.
This is the thing. I think that we just we have to like work on it consistently. Otherwise, it never changes. The fact that we get older or we move from like retiring from one thing and moving into the other. It's like, I know I've admitted to myself that my workaholic habits has nothing to do with my job. It has to do with me, because
Mhm.
even though I'm no longer in that environment, I still am that person. So yeah, so I used to just add to the plates, and then I get overwhelmed. And so actually about a month ago, I've decided to go on to this big writing project. And in the past, I would just add it onto the plate and say, okay, well, then that means for the next however long it takes, I will work extra hard or longer or whatever. But this time, I consciously asked myself, what can I take off from my plate? And Yvonne, I'm telling you, it was not an easy question for me to answer, because I look at the plate and I say, but all of these things are important, or all of these things I want to do. And I don't
Yeah.
want to remove it. It's so easy to just to give advice to other people, like on
Oh, yeah,
Instagram
right.
or LinkedIn, or just like, when you're doing it, it's not easy. You're looking at your plate and you're like, there's a reason why they're on my plate. And so what am I going to remove? It's so hard.
It's
I'm
like
just being
Thanksgiving dinner in
realistic.
America, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you load your plate up, and it's just like it's
Right.
ridiculous, right? And it's
That
just
is a
little bits of it. Oh, it's just a little bit of that. It's a little bit of that.
that's a
Yeah.
perfect example.
We're
Exactly.
humaning, right? Oh my
It's just
goodness.
hard. But this time, I guess that you and I are in the same boat, and I think a lot of our listeners are probably in the same boat. In this particular case, I decided to collapse or combine two projects because, just without going into details, I have a newsletter, the Midlife Cues. Then I have the podcast, which is Second Breaks. And then I am going to add to the plate. And then I have a couple other projects unrelated to these. But then I have the writing project, the book project that I wanted to do. And so that would be another big chunk of projects. So I said, what can I take off of my plate? And I didn't want to take off the newsletter off my plate. And I didn't want to take off the podcast off my plate. And so I decided I was going to combine the writing project and the podcast for the foreseeable future, so that what I'm writing is going to be what's on the podcast and vice versa. And it's a compromise solution for me because
it's repurposing your content, right? Which is it's so smart. To take because not everybody's going to see. I think people who have businesses, they don't, they post something to social media and they post it once and think, oh, I can't do that again. But really, like, who saw it?
Yeah,
really?
Exactly.
I
think the idea of, I guess the ideal advice out there is, if you're going to put on something on your plate or add on something on your plate, for everything that you add on, you remove something, right? So that's the common advice. But in my case, since I wasn't willing to remove anything on my plate, I combined two so that they serve each other. So I'm cheating in a way.
And I think when we talked about it, you're going to go solo with those podcast episodes, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually going to make a big difference for you, I think, because it takes out that extra element of scheduling with another human being, right? And you can do shorter podcast episodes, right?
Yes, right.
Based on, and just do a little bit of your book.
Yeah.
I think it's going to help you get the book written.
It's funny, Yvonne, as you were saying that, because these are actually sort of like I'm going to use the word justification, right? So these are actually the justifications that I was doing in my mind when I was convincing myself that I would combine the two instead of removing one. And so I was saying things that you're saying, right? So I was like, okay, and I will have more solo episodes, less time for the interviews. And also the solo episodes, it will help me also because then because I don't do a lot of solos. So this would also help me get better at doing solo episodes and speaking about my topic that is going to be written, and help me I was sort of like rationalizing or justifying in my head how I could fit both without giving up one. But then there's also another part of me that's like, but you want to do interviews because that's how you do this and that's how you do that. Anyway, make long story short, I got to the point where, well, Lou, if you do not want to give up something, then this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to, this is the compromise solution. And so this is how I'm doing. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes to see if it's going to be successful. It's, in a way, it's an experiment. But yeah, it's hard to remove, because the other things too that on our plates are like relationships are important, right? So hanging out with friends are important. We say that, like, connections are important, but they take up time. We invest time in relationships and we invest time in making connections, and everything takes up time. I don't know how you do this because you're a very social person. So it's like, these things take up time.
And here's the funny thing, like, I did talk a little bit earlier about the overwhelmed feeling that I have right now because I've said yes to too many things and I've let my calendar fill up. And here's the thing, though, they are all good things. They're all good things. And I'm actually not that social. That's the funny thing. I actually, do
you just look social and appear social.
I love people. I do like to spend time with people, but I need a lot of just me time. Like I'll go be social, but I need to recover from that. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of my energy to go do that social thing. And
Right.
yeah. But so the overwhelm is hilarious. And I find myself getting into this thing where I'm like, oh, I can't keep up. I can't. And before I know it, I've got this little pity party going. And I'm like, who created this, Yvonne?
Yes,
this is all you. And you like doing all these things.
Yes.
So what are you going to do about that?
Right. Exactly. It's so funny when you say that they're all good things, because I think usually when people say, well, you have to learn to say no, or you can't say yes, you can overextend yourself. I think it's one thing when it's a choice between goods and not goods. Right. So, of course, something that you're interested in versus you're not interested in. Obviously, you say no to the you're not interested in. It's easy. But when it's all things that you're interested in, and it's all things that you say to yourself, I want these things in my life, that's when it's harder to say no to certain things. And, I don't, it's a good problem to have.
It is.
I suppose, because then we have things that we actually like to have in our lives.
Too much of a good thing.
Too much of a good thing. Exactly. Because, it's that balancing sort of thing is that I guess we will continue to have. Who has learned this thing? I want to know. I want to get to know the person who has learned this thing.
Anybody listening, if you have something figured out, please let me know.
If you dialed into the key, please let us know.
Oh my goodness. I think back to when I was in elementary school, and there was always this little section of the report card that was uses time wisely. So you could either get an S for satisfactory, an N for needs improvement, or some other thing. And I never once in my entire life got a satisfactory S in that little section. It was always a big fat N. And it's hilarious. Like I do think maybe I have ADHD, and and they're finding out more about what it looks like, and it looks different for girls than it does for boys. And I'm like, it kind of makes sense to me that I do not manage time well. I don't.
No, right?
I'll have a super productive day, maybe one a week. Maybe if I'm in a good, I have one day where I just am like, I rocked this day. And then the rest of my week is like, I'm like a pinball. And I get to the end of the day and I know I did a lot of things, but I don't know what I did.
Right. And
it's like, what?
I know how that feels. It's like, I was very busy, but what actually moved or advanced forward? I don't know. But it's funny when you were talking about using time wisely, and I think this idea of using our time wisely might have evolved as we got older, because I think, especially at least for me, I'll personalize this, is that using time wisely for a long time for me is synonymous to being productive. Being productive meaning I have an output that I can show people. Here, I finished this report. I finished this project. I'd
like my gold star now, please.
Yes,
right? I'd like my gold star. I finished the thing, and I'm showing it to you, right?
Right. So to me, that was using time wisely.
Yeah.
Today, I don't know. Is that how I want to define using time wisely? I don't know.
So tell me, I have ideas about that, but tell me where you're going with this. Like how has that evolved for you as you've gotten older?
I think, okay, so there's an element of this aspirational again. So aspirationally, I think I want to be able to say that I use time wisely for productive things, yes, but also for things that are for me, for myself, for taking care of myself, for my enjoyment, and that's also using time wisely.
Yes.
So that's how I'd like to be able to say that I've used my time wisely. I don't know that I'm there yet because I do know that I do feel guilty when I'm not being productive. When I am just doing leisurely stuff and I catch myself feeling like you should be writing.
Yes.
Instead of doing that. And so I know that I'm not there yet. So it's still an aspirational thing for me. I don't know. What do you think about does
100%.
this make sense to you?
Oh, 100%. Yes. I mean, I get up in the mornings and I meditate, and I do that because I know that is using time wisely for me, because it makes such a difference in how I tee up my day and what's going to happen with the rest of my day and my attitude. My little, because sometimes I wake up, I roll out of bed. I am not a happy camper when I roll out of bed all the time,
And that just affects the rest of the day.
Right. So I need to have that time to reset. And I'll tell you, today was like, I needed the whole dang morning. I was like, first of all, I haven't slept well for nights. And I got up at 4:30 today. I was just like, well, I'm up. So I did the meditation, I did some yoga, and I thought, well, maybe I'll go roller skate, right? Because roller skating has been like, and that's where we get into that whole idea of, you said, doing something you enjoy.
Right.
Like I am doing roller skating. It is active. So I feel like, okay, it's not a workout, but it is active. I'm moving my body. So I know that's good, but it's, for me, it's just fun, and it gives me that I just need to tap into fun. And I do think that is using time wisely. So I let myself go do those things. Today, I didn't do it because I was in such a funk this morning that I just had to I did go to the beach, and I literally sat in my car for a while and just asked myself questions.
Right. Yeah.
About what do you want? What do I want? And why am I in this funk right now? And what is this? Let's look at this, and just stay curious about it. And then I did go for a walk, and I did a little bit of exercising kind of stuff while I was walking. And then I came home and I was ready to work, but it was an extra long morning of just being with myself. And I do think that is using time wisely.
I think so. See, that's the thing, because what would be the alternative? So I'm trying to think logic out our way into this, right? So, the alternative would be you would go about your day pissed off or cranky, not in a good mood, and is that using time wisely, or is it better to just, I'll just walk by myself and sort things out? And I want to say that is a better use of time. I need to sort things out. I need to think things through. I need to just go on a long walk and just, because that's, for the time being, for today, that's using time wisely.
Yeah.
I like being able to say that, but
you're not putting it into practice. Is that what you're telling me, Lou?
I feel guilty when I do that.
So you are doing it, but you haven't crossed the Rubicon of not letting yourself. Right back.
Yeah, so
interesting.
So that's why I said I still am aspirationally saying this is what I'd like to be able, how I'd like to be able to define using time wisely now.
I think we should check in on each other. I think we should check in on this, because I struggle with this too. Don't think that I just go do these things and I don't have that guilt. I think I think I'm a little less guilty feeling about it
Yes.
than you are, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wonder if you keep making yourself do it
Mm-hmm.
and noticing.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, like, maybe we should check back in 6 months and see if
Yeah.
you
So how
have,
are you doing?
how's that going?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to let yourself go do things just for Lou?
Yeah, no, what I do, I remember, I don't know if you recall, but I don't think it's on a podcast episode that we recorded, but we were talking a few months ago, and I said something like, oh God, I wasted so many hours watching Game of Thrones, which I just discovered this year. I'm like the last person on earth who discovered Game of Thrones, and I discovered it earlier this year, and I just like watched it. And you said, but that's not wasting your time. That's you enjoying yourself, and it just, because we do need things like that also. It can't just be all serious and productive things. And so I do that. Like I do things that but it's funny because like when you were saying how roller skating is not workout, but it's moving, that's kind of what goes on in my head. It's like, okay, I'm going to go for a long walk, but it's exercise. I'm walking, like I'm trying to associate what I'm doing with a productive thing so that I could feel
It's that
better
whole
about.
human doing versus human being thing,
Yes.
right? It is
Yes.
like
Right.
I struggle with this. I
Yeah.
do, and I think everybody does. I don't think we cut ourselves enough slack to just, you know what? It's a miracle that we're here, living and breathing
Yes.
and talking on this planet at this moment in time. It is a flippin' miracle. And I look around me and I'm like, everything around me is a miracle. The fact that, right? Like the fact that I walk out the door and I see what I see at the moment I see it, like say a bird fly by, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that is timing.
Exactly.
That is timing. That is a miracle that those things come. And I think we overlook just, we are allowed to just breathe. We are allowed to just be here as human beings and take a shower when we need to shower. Right. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need a shower, but do I have time for a shower? I don't know. Can I fit it in between this and this? And, and like,
I know.
We just torture ourselves.
I was reading this book. It's a fiction story, but the character was spending time at the library reading all kinds of non-work related books. And this character in this book that I'm reading was saying how it was fun to indulge and read stuff that are just interesting to him versus it is necessary for the job, or it was learning something that is related to the job. And I was reading this thing in the book and I'm like, oh my God, this is so true for me, because even that fiction story that I was reading, there's a part of my brain, there's a tiny little part of my brain that goes, instead of reading this, you should be reading this other book about writing, or you should be, like productive reading versus reading for fun.
Yes, I totally get that. And do you find yourself like, okay, so you're just going about your life, we're content creators, right? Mm-hmm. You do more of the writing. I'm doing a lot more video reel things on reels, right? These days. And I don't know about you, but I'm just living my life and I'm constantly thinking about content creation.
Yes. Like, how is this going to be translated into a content that I'm going to write about?
How about you just take this moment for yourself? How about you just live for a moment without worrying about how you need to translate it for somebody to consume later?
This is the point, because I'm reading this book and I'm like, this is a totally fiction book that I will not be able to use for any purpose. And I'm like, I'm quote unquote wasting time. I could be reading a more productive article or a more productive. Oh my God, Lou, just enjoy the book because it's a fun read.
And yet here we are talking about that book you read for pleasure on a podcast.
Right, exactly.
Right, which for us is a productive kind of thing, right? So, like you can't separate it, right?
No, right.
It all.
It's funny, but I think the thing that I know I am better at least something I could show for all the years that I've been on Earth. Uh, the thing that I know that I'm better at is I am better at self-awareness now than I was when I was in my 30s or 40s even. So now when I do these things, I catch myself and I'm like, Lou, just enjoy, I'm able to like catch myself and coach myself to feel differently or think differently about certain things. Whereas when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, early 40s, I wouldn't have been able to catch myself. Now I'm at least able to to catch myself.
Hey, I say take that and run with it. That is you own that. You own that, Lou. That's yours. That is yours to own.
Exactly. Yeah. But even like negative self-talk, like now I'm able to catch myself better but than I was when I was younger. Now I'm like, what in the world? Why am I talking to myself that way? That's the wisdom learned for all the years of being alive.
I think there's a little bit more there that you're just not quite giving yourself credit for, but I'll just say.
But yeah, so you are gonna do the hiatus on the podcast, but you will not be disappearing from social media, or what are you doing for social? You're not disappearing from social media, right?
No. In fact, what I'm going to do is I am going to have on social media, I'm going to have a campaign going to suggest old episodes.
Oh, yes, that's a good idea.
Right. And I'm seeing, it's so cool because I'm seeing some posts from people that have been on my podcast, and I'm like, oh, look at what so-and-so is doing right now. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to put a little note and have that as like a little something I will share about what they're up to now, and say, hey, look at what so-and-so is doing. This is very cool. And go listen to their podcast,
Right.
So I'm going to have suggestions for you guys on what to listen to.
That's excellent, because it's true. A lot of our episodes, you and I talk about non-current events type stuff. So the story that I talked about with someone a year and a half ago is still valid today. So why?
And I don't think anybody who listens to this podcast has heard every episode. You know what I mean?
No,
so,
right. Yeah.
Right. You might be like, I have my favorite podcasts, then I miss I miss chunks of them, and then come back and go, oh, let me catch up on, this one.
Yeah, same thing. Exactly. Yeah. Or, and even on my most favorite podcasts, if I see them talking about something that they talked about in the past, it's not like, oh, what's the matter with this person? I won't feel negatively about them. So why can't we do it?
Why not? Why not?
Exactly.
That's one of the things I love about podcasting, Lou, is we get to make all of our own rules. Anybody's listening, who's ever thought about doing a podcast, guess what? You get to do it exactly the way you want to do it. You can have seasons. You can not have seasons. You can have it be a 5-minute podcast. You can have it be a 3-hour podcast if you want to. It's a beautiful thing. There's a lot of freedom in doing this.
Yeah, I remember a few weeks ago when I first mentioned to you this idea that I was thinking about how to fit the writing project in, and I mentioned that I was going to do this for the podcast, and you had said something about shorter episodes, and I'm like, yeah, why does it have to be 15, 20 minutes? It could be a 10-minute episode. It could be like a 5-minute episode. If that's all I want to talk about, if that's all the episode is about. Because we put these sort of arbitrary sort of rules, or it has to be this way. But why does it have to be that way?
It doesn't. That's the answer. It just doesn't. So I'm so excited for your writing project, Lou. When are you changing up the format of your podcast so that starts going to those solo episodes? Do you have a time frame for that? Well,
actually, it's sort of ended up started already. So the topic, generally speaking, is about modern retirement in the 21st century. And I had planned to this was before it was going to be a writing project. I had already planned on an episode talks about, retirement a while ago. And so I did that. And then as I got into this writing project, I'm like, okay, well, the succeeding episodes are just going to continue talking about this topic, and interviews are going to be around this topic. So in a way, it ended up having started already, although it's still sort of on the long side, because these are the episodes that I had planned.
You'd already recorded them. You've already got them in you've already got them in the can. Yeah.
But going forward, so I'm in it. I'm in it already, and it's just going to be that way for a bit. And there will be some interviews, but the interviews are also they're going to serve the book. So they're all going to be about the topics that are going to be discussed in the book. So that's how it's going to be for a while. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, it's an experiment. Well, I want to ask you about your projects, but I know you don't want to talk about the one yet. But can you talk a little bit about the projects the bigger ones, the new projects that you're working on? Anything you can share?
Well, I can share that the book is going to incorporate my photography and the late bloomer living idea.
Yes.
So I like to take pictures of flowers. So
Yes.
I have a lot of them.
Mhm.
And I'm using those, and I'm talking, and it's all about the definition of the word bloom.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
So there you go.
Awesome. So this is the one that you're already working on, and you want to.
And I think I've got another book in me later on down the line that'll be, maybe I might incorporate some of the podcast interviews along with a little bit of, what I've learned along the way doing this, different things like that. That may be a book in the future, but that's still very out.
Yeah. This one first, right? Also, well, so I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear more about it and see where it goes.
Yeah. Thanks. Oh, thank you for helping me wrap up season 3.
Of course.
And I'll see you again in season 4 for more at some point.
So we are going to. So wait a second. Can I just clarify something? No, can I just clarify something? So you're gonna break. So you're going to promote on social media. You're not going to disappear. You're going to promote older episodes, but on the podcast feed, you won't be re-releasing. It'll just
I will not be re-releasing.
Okay,
no, that's where I'm pressing the easy button. I thought about doing that, and then I was like, that is just
there's more production.
Other thing that I'd have to press a lot of buttons for.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've decided that I'm going to be kind to myself, and I'm going to press the easy button, and I'm just going to, anybody who follows me on social I'm just going to be letting you know, or, my emails will, I'll still send out my weekly email for anybody who's on my email list. Sign up. Get, go to the website, get signed up if you aren't already on there, because I will still be sending out emails weekly.
Cool beans.
So
well, this is your using your time wisely over the summer, because you have other projects, you have other things, you have family, you have.
I'm finally learning how to use time wisely. Is that what you just said? Because that's what I heard.
Yes. Is it an S? Like, what is the grade for that?
I just got an S. Yes, an S for satisfactory.
Yay. It just took a lot, all our lives to get there.
Oh my goodness.
All right, my friend. Well, this is awesome. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for your plans. I always love hearing about your plans, as you know. And I'm going to see you on Instagram. So
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll be there. All righty. I'll talk to you later, Lou. I always love talking to Lou. We could just go on and on and on. So after hearing that conversation, oh man, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think using time wisely means to you now at this point in your life? How do you want to use your remaining time? What is it, Mary Oliver? What will you do with this one precious life? I think it asks the same question. I hope I got that quote right. I love her. If you don't know Mary Oliver's poetry, go check it out.
So yeah, I'm going to be absent for a little bit, my friend, and I know I'm probably going to go through a little bit of withdrawals from checking in here weekly with you. But what I will be doing is posting a lot on social media to point out some past episodes that are audience favorites, that I've gotten good feedback on, that have gotten a lot of downloads, or any other reason, or just because I just like it. So watch my Instagram feed, if you will, or Facebook also. I'm Late Bloomer Living on Instagram, so pretty easy to find if you're not already there. And I hope you will stick with me during my break and go back and dive in on some older episodes and have some fun there and let me know what you think. In the meantime, I am going to be looking at what I want to do with season 4. If there are any changes that I want to make. And I'd love to hear from you about what kind of episodes you'd like to hear going forward for this podcast. So that is my invitation to you, is to please email me or send me a private message on Instagram or anything like that. I also have a place you can go and leave me little voicemail recordings on the homepage. No, is it on the podcast page of my website? I will try to put that in the show notes as well. So you can just click a little button on my website and leave me a message. But let me know the kinds of stories you want to hear, or do you want to hear a more advice-based episodes to talk about, our health in midlife, mental health, sleep, how do we get more of it? Anything like that. So I'd really love to hear from you. Please give me feedback. Let me know what you think. And I will be mulling over what we're going to do with season 4 as we go forward. Always looking to evolve, always looking to grow, my friend. Thank you for coming along this ride with me. Love you. Have a great week. Stay safe and well. And we will talk a little bit later, but still soon. Mid-October, come back and talk to me. Bye.